You know, I was walking my dog yesterday afternoon, and it was one of those days where the weather just felt wrong. You know that feeling?
Wrong how?
Yeah.
Like, ominous.
Yeah, exactly. It was unseasonably warm, which for late January is always a bit suspicious. But it wasn't a nice warm. It was sticky. The air felt heavy, physically pressing on my temples.
Oh, yeah?
I actually had this low-grade headache, and I remember just looking at the sky and thinking, something is about to happen.
That headache weather is a real thing, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a biological response.
Hmm.
You were likely feeling the barometer dropping.
Yeah.
Your body is basically a walking sensor.
Well, my sensor was right on the money because, I don't know, maybe 2 hours later, the sky turns this sort of bruised purple color. The wind just kicks up out of nowhere.
Yep.
I'm talking garbage cans rolling down the street. And the temperature drops 20 degrees in what felt like 30 minutes.
Classic. You went through the wash cycle?
It was so violent, and it got me thinking. We see this on the news all the time. The meteorologist stands there, points to that blue line with the triangles, and just says, cold front coming through.
Right.
And we just, we grab a jacket, we treat it like it's just a wardrobe change.
We do. We think of it as, okay, today is warm, tomorrow is cold.
Yeah.
But we totally ignore that transition period.
Exactly. But what physically hit me, because it felt like I got hit by a truck. And when I started looking into the source material for this deep dive, I realized that in terms of atmospheric fluid dynamics, I kind of did get hit by a truck.
That is a very, very accurate analogy.
Yeah.
A cold front isn't just some line on a map. It is a physical object. It has mass, it has velocity, and it creates a shockwave.
So that is our mission today. We're stepping outside. We are going to decode the physics of the cold front. And I don't want the Weather Channel summary. I want to know what is happening to the air molecules over my head when that blue line crosses my house.
We are absolutely going to get into the weeds. We need to talk about density currents. We're going to define FROPA, which is a great piece of jargon.
I saw that one.
And we're going to talk about why cold fronts are essentially the atmosphere's way of aggressively restoring order.
Aggressive was the word in the research that really stood out to me. This isn't a gentle mixing of air, is it?
Not at all. It's a battle. It's a
Yeah.
plow. If you really want to understand weather, you have to stop thinking of air as this, ethereal, ghostly thing. You have to think of it as a fluid, just like water.
Okay, so let's start with the basics, but then I want to get complicated. When I see that blue line on the map, the one with the little triangles pointing the way, what am I actually looking at? I'm assuming it's not a literal wall of blue air.
No, although that would make forecasting a lot easier. That line represents the leading edge of a cooler, denser air mass that is replacing a warmer air mass. But the key word there is replacing.
Replacing, not just mixing in.
Correct. And this is the fundamental point people get wrong. They think the cold air comes in and just sort of swirls around with warm air until everything is lukewarm. That's not what happens at all.
Okay.
Think about two fluids, like oil and water, or maybe water and syrup. If you pour them into the same container, they don't just instantly blend. They clash. They separate out based on their density.
And that's happening in the sky.
That is exactly what's happening in the sky on a massive scale.
So we have this cold air mass coming down from, I don't know, the Arctic or Canada, and it just crashes into the warm air sitting over us.
Right. And here is the physics aha moment that explains all the violence. Density. Cold air is dense. The molecules are moving slower. They're packed tighter together. It is heavy.
Right.
Warm air is light. It's expansive, and it's energetic.
So the cold air is like a bowling ball, and the warm air is kind of a bag of feathers.
Essentially, yes.
Oh,
That's a
wow.
great way to think about it. So when this cold air mass moves in, it doesn't float. It sinks. It hugs the ground. It moves like a wedge across the surface of the earth.
A wedge.
Like a doorstop.
Exactly like a doorstop. Or, let's go back to your truck analogy. Think of a snowplow.
Okay.
Imagine a snowplow driving down a street filled with slush. The plow is the cold air. The slush is the warm air. The plow doesn't mix with the slush. It stays on the pavement and physically forces the slush up and over it.
And that up and over action, that's the key, isn't it?
That is the engine of the entire storm.
I want to dig into the shape of this wedge for a second, because in the reading, it mentioned that the slope of a cold front is really different from a warm front. The source material used the phrase a steeply sloping boundary. Why is it so steep? Why isn't it just a gentle hill?
That's a great question, and it really comes down to one word. Friction. Friction with what? The ground.
Yes. Think about this massive block of cold air sliding south. The air at, say, 5,000 feet is moving along pretty smoothly. But the air that's actually touching the ground,
Mm-hmm.
It's dragging against trees, buildings, hills, forests. It's experiencing drag.
So the feet of the front are kind of getting tripped up.
Exactly. The surface air slows down, but the air above it keeps pushing forward. This causes the nose of the front to bulge forward and get really steep. It creates a very sharp, sometimes almost vertical leading edge.
I saw some ratios in the notes that really put this into perspective. A warm front might have a slope of like 1 to 200.
Right. Which means for every 200 miles you go horizontally, the wedge only rises 1 mile. It's a super gentle ramp. You can barely feel you're going up.
But a cold front.
It can be 1 to 50 or even steeper. It is a wall.
Yeah.
So when that warm air gets hit by the cold front, it doesn't gently glide up a ramp.
It gets kicked.
It gets launched vertically into the atmosphere.
Which explains why the weather happens so fast. I mean, a warm front gives you 2 days of gray skies. A cold front gives you 20 minutes of just chaos.
Precisely. You're compressing all of that lifting energy into a very, very narrow band. And that's why you get thunderstorms, squall lines, and tornadoes instead of just a gentle, boring drizzle.
It's the difference between taking the escalator and being shot out of a cannon.
That is a fantastic analogy, yes. And that cannon shot creates what we call vertical development in the clouds, which we'll get to in a bit. But first, we have to talk about the temperature shock.
Yeah, the numbers here were staggering. We are not talking about needing to put on a light sweater.
No. In strong cold fronts, especially in the transition seasons like spring or fall, you can see temperature drops of 30 degrees Celsius. That's over 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
In what kind of time frame?
Sometimes in just a matter of hours. There are historical records of temperatures dropping 40 or 50 degrees Fahrenheit in minutes during extreme blue norther events in Texas or on the high plains.
That sounds physically dangerous.
Oh, it is. It's a thermodynamic shock wave. I mean, imagine the energy required to cool down the air of an entire state by 30 degrees. It's massive. The atmosphere is expending a huge amount of potential energy trying to equalize that temperature difference.
So when we say the atmosphere is trying to restore balance, this is it in action.
This is it. The atmosphere hates gradients. It hates when one spot is hot and the other is cold. It wants everything to be, gray and lukewarm. A cold front is the atmosphere's most aggressive attempt to fix that imbalance.
It's nature's way of violently mixing the bathtub water.
Very violent mixing.
Okay.
But it takes a lot of energy to move that much heat around.
Okay, so we know what the beast is. It's a dense, steep wedge of cold air acting like a snowplow, dragging its feet on the ground but bullying the warm air up.
Correct.
But what I found so fascinating in the research is that there is a script. There's a timeline to it.
Oh, absolutely.
If you know what to look for, you can see this thing coming hours before it actually hits. It's almost like a horror movie where the music changes before the monster appears.
The atmosphere gives you plenty of hints, if you stop looking at your phone for a minute and just look at the sky.
Let's walk the listener through this timeline. I want to build a FRAPA checklist.
Let's do it.
First off, let's define FRAPA, because I saw this in the notes and I thought it sounded like some kind of fruit drink.
It does sound like a beverage, doesn't it? Can I get a venti fropa? No, it stands for frontal passage. It's the code meteorologists use in their logbooks. They'll write, fropa at 1400 hours. It marks the exact minute the boundary line crosses your station.
I love that. It makes it sound like a tactical event. Prepare for FROPA.
It feels like one. It is absolutely the defining moment of the whole event.
So let's go to phase 1, before the front. This goes back to my walk yesterday, the heaviness. Can you break that down for me? Why did I feel heavy?
You were in what we call the warm sector. That's the wedge of warm air that's about to be displaced. There are 3 things happening to you physically in there. First, the temperature is higher than normal. Second, the dew point is high.
Which means humidity.
Stickiness. The air is just holding a lot of water vapor. But the third thing, and this is the key, is the pressure. The barometer is falling.
Why is it falling? And actually, this confuses me. If cold air is heavy and dense, shouldn't the pressure be rising as it gets closer?
That is a super common point of confusion. The cold air is high pressure, you're right about that,
Yeah.
but it hasn't arrived yet. The cold front is usually trailing from a low pressure center. So as the front approaches, you're actually getting closer to that low. The column of air above your head is weighing less and less.
Okay, so the heaviness I feel in my head is actually the lack of atmospheric weight?
Paradoxically, yes. The heavy feeling is usually the humidity and heat, but the joint pain or the headache, that is your body expanding just slightly because there is less atmospheric pressure pushing down on you.
Hence the old saying, Grandpa's knee is acting up, a storm's coming.
It is scientifically valid. We are basically big bags of fluid, And when the outside pressure drops, we expand.
So we're muggy, it's warm, pressure's dropping. What about the wind? What's it doing?
In the northern hemisphere, the wind is pumping in from the south, southwest or southeast. It's doing everything it can to feed warm, moist air into the system. It's essentially fueling the fire that the cold front is about to ignite.
Then looking up, what are the clouds telling us?
This is where you get your early warning system. Unlike a warm front, which gives you days of warning with thickening stratus clouds, a cold front is faster. You might see some cirrus, those really wispy high clouds. But the real tell, and this is one of my favorite cloud types, is altocumulus.
These are the scales, right?
Yeah.
The mackerel sky.
Yes, exactly. They look like little puffy cotton balls or fish scales, all packed together in rows.
And why do they form? What's that a sign of?
They form in the middle of the atmosphere, maybe 10,000 to 20,000 feet up, and they indicate that the air aloft is becoming unstable. The cold air is actually starting to intrude at high levels before it ever hits the ground.
Wow.
So if you see those thickening up on a muggy afternoon run,
That ominous.
it means the atmosphere is priming itself for an explosion. It means the cap is about to break.
Okay, so the stage is set. We're sweating. The sky looks like fish scales. The wind's blowing from the south. Then, the event, the fruppa.
Moment of impact.
What happens in that specific minute?
It's just chaos. First, the pressure hits its absolute bottom. We'll call that the trough. And then it immediately shoots up. On a graph, it looks like a really sharp V. It bottoms out and then spikes.
The V of violence?
Exactly. And the wind. This is the most obvious sign for anyone standing outside. We call it the shift.
Right. The research mentioned veering and backing. This confused me a little bit. Can we clarify this for everyone listening?
Sure.
Yeah.
It just depends on which hemisphere you're standing in, but the physics is the same. In the northern hemisphere, we look for veering. That means the wind direction changes clockwise.
Clockwise. Okay.
So imagine you're standing on a giant clock face. The wind was blowing from the 7 or 8, that's the southwest. As the front passes, it swings around to the 10 or 11 toward the northwest.
And this isn't a slow rotation over, like, 3 hours.
No. Sudden. It is abrupt. 1 minute the wind is hitting your face, the next it's hitting the back of your head, and it's gusty. This is when you see the trees thrashing, the patio furniture taking flight.
So why does it shift like that? Is it just the cold air pushing it?
It's the change in the pressure gradient. The wind always blows from high pressure to low pressure, but the Coriolis effect curves it. When that pressure trough passes you, the orientation of the isobars, the pressure lines on a map, changes instantly, so the wind just has to realign itself.
And for our listeners in, say, Australia or South America?
For them, it's backing. The wind shifts counterclockwise from northwest to southwest, but the result is exactly the same. Polar air is rushing in to replace equatorial air.
So the wind whips around, the pressure jumps up, and then the temperature crashes.
But the bottom just drops out. And something else happens that people love. The visibility clears up.
Yes, the crispness.
Right. That warm air in the warm sector. It's stagnant, it's full of haze, pollution, pollen. It's just dirty air. The cold air mass coming down from the poles is clean. It's dry. It basically scours out the sky.
So that sparkling blue sky you get the next morning, that's the cold air.
That is high pressure settling in.
But we are skipping the best part. Between the heaviness and the crisp blue sky, there's the drama.
Yes, the rain band.
This is segment 3, the drama. Let's talk about what happens when you launch warm, wet air vertically at, 50 miles per hour.
You get the king of clouds, the cumulonimbus.
Thunderheads.
These are not your friendly little puffy sheet clouds. These are monsters. They can tower 40,000 to 60,000 feet into the atmosphere. They literally hit the top of the troposphere and flatten out like an anvil.
And because the front is a steep wedge, these clouds form in a line, right?
Exactly. A warm front will cover the whole sky in a blanket. A cold front forms a squall line. It's a narrow, incredibly intense band of destruction.
I've seen this on radar. It looks like a red snake slithering across the map.
That's the leading edge. And right under that red line, you have heavy rain, lightning, hail, and if the shear is right, tornadoes.
Shear being the change in wind direction with height.
Right. Remember how we said the wind shifts from southwest to northwest? That turning of the wind creates spin in the atmosphere. And if the updraft from the storm catches that spin, you have a tornado.
It's just terrifying to think that all of this is just physics trying to balance an equation.
It really is. It's just energy transfer. But to us standing underneath it, it feels very personal.
Now, I have to ask a question that came up when I was reading the manual. Does it always rain at the front? Because I feel like I've had cold fronts come through where it just got windy and cold, but there was no storm.
That is a dry passage.
Sounds like a medical condition.
It does. But it just comes down to moisture availability. It's a simple recipe.
Huh.
You need three things for a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
You need lift, instability, and moisture. The cold front provides the lift.
Check.
The warm air usually provides the instability. But if that warm air is bone dry, maybe it's coming off a desert or it hasn't had time to recharge over the Gulf of Mexico, you can lift it all you want, but you're not going to get condensation.
No water, no cloud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll just get a lot of wind, a sudden freeze, and maybe a lot of dust kicking up.
Which can be dangerous in its own way. I'm thinking fire weather, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Strong winds plus very dry air equals extreme fire danger.
And on the flip side, sometimes the rain doesn't happen at the front, sometimes it happens behind it. The notes mentioned anafronts and catafronts, which sounded way too technical, but can we simplify that?
We can. It's basically about the angle of the flow.
Yeah.
Usually the air rises right at the nose of the front. That's the classic storm. But sometimes the instability is weak and the warm air slides up the back of the cold wedge instead.
So the rain is actually trailing the cold air.
Exactly. You get the wind shift, it gets cold, and then the rain starts. It's usually a cold, miserable rain. And interestingly, as that rain falls into the cold air, it evaporates a little, which cools the air even further.
Evaporative cooling.
Right. It actually reinforces the cold front.
There was one visual phenomenon in the notes that I hadn't heard of before, and I looked up pictures. It's absolutely stunning. Cloud streets.
Ah, yes. These are beautiful.
What are they?
So picture this. The front has passed. The storm is over. The cold air is pouring in behind the front. But sometimes that cold air moves over ground or water that is still pretty warm from the previous few days.
Okay, so cold air over a warm surface.
That heat from the ground starts to bubble up into the cold air. That's convection. But because the wind is blowing so hard and so straight, it organizes those bubbles into these long parallel rows of cumulus clouds.
They look like streets, or like furrows in a freshly plowed field.
Exactly. If you ever look at satellite imagery after a massive cold front sweeps off the east coast of the U.S. over the warm Atlantic Ocean, you'll see these incredible white stripes stretching for hundreds of miles.
That plow analogy really, really holds up.
It really does. If you see those distinct rows of clouds, you're looking at the footprint of the cold air taking control.
So we've covered the anatomy, the timeline, the clouds, and the rain. But I want to zoom out for a minute. Segment 4, the bigger picture. Because these things don't just pop up out of nowhere. They're part of a machine.
The cyclone.
And this is where we get to the really nerdy stuff. I want to talk about frontogenesis and something called the trowel.
The trowel.
Right.
Now we are really diving deep.
Let's start with frontogenesis. It sounds like the prequel to a sci-fi movie.
It does. The genesis of the front.
So how is a front born? Does the atmosphere just decide to make a wall one day?
It's all about tightening the temperature gradient. Imagine you have a blob of warm air and a blob of cold air, but they're far apart. The temperature change between them is gradual. It's a gentle slide.
Okay.
Now imagine the wind pattern aloft. The jet stream starts blowing in a way that pushes those two blobs together. It squeezes them.
Like a deformation zone in geology.
Exactly. It's the deformation field. The winds compress the isotherms, the lines of equal temperature, so the temperature difference occurs over a shorter and shorter distance. That tightening process is frontogenesis. The boundary becomes sharp.
So the wind actually constructs the wall.
Yes. And once that wall is built, a vertical circulation starts. Warm air goes up, cold air goes down. And that circulation becomes self-sustaining. It becomes a weather engine.
So the storm isn't just a side effect, it's the atmosphere expending energy to try and fix the temperature imbalance.
Precisely. It is a heat engine. It's converting potential energy, which is the temperature difference, into kinetic energy, which is wind and storms.
Now, where do these cold fronts usually hang out? The source material mentions something called a dry conveyor belt.
Right. So cold fronts are usually attached to a larger system called an extratropical cyclone. That's just a fancy name for a big low-pressure system in the middle latitudes, like where the U.S. or Europe is.
Okay, can you visualize the swirl for me?
Picture a comma shape on a weather map. The head of the comma is the low-pressure center. The tail of the comma is the cold front.
Got it.
Now, inside that swirl, there are different streams of air, like conveyor belts in a factory. There's a warm conveyor belt bringing moisture up from the south. But wrapping around the backside of the low is the dry conveyor belt.
And where does that air come from?
It comes from way up high, near the stratosphere. It descends. So it's incredibly cold and incredibly dry. The cold front is essentially the leading edge of that dry conveyor belt flow crashing into the warm conveyor belt.
It's amazing to think of it as a 3D structure. We look at the map and we see these 2D lines, but it's actually these huge streams of air wrapping around each other.
It's a complex dance. And because cold fronts move faster than warm fronts, they're actually what eventually kills the storm.
How does that work?
Well, think of it like a race. The warm front is ahead, but it's moving slow. The cold front is behind it, moving fast. Eventually, the cold front catches up.
And this is what we call occlusion.
Yes. When the cold front catches the warm front, it acts like a zipper. It just zips up that whole warm sector.
So what happens to all the warm air?
It has nowhere to go but up. The cold air has completely undercut it, so the warm air is lifted entirely off the ground. It's no longer a wedge at the surface. It's just this pool of warm air floating aloft.
And this leads to my new favorite acronym in all of meteorology, the trowel.
Trowel. Please break that down.
It stands for Trough of Warm Air Aloft.
Exactly. Trough of warm air aloft.
It sounds like a Lord of the Rings location. We must march to the trowel of Mordor.
It describes that tongue of warm air that has been lifted high above the surface because the cold front undercut it completely.
So how would I know if a trowel is over me?
Well, on the surface, it's just cold. The front has passed. But aloft, there's still warm, moist air rising. So you might get heavy snow or rain occurring back in the cold air, wrapped around the system. It's usually a sign that the storm system is maturing and starting to die out.
It's the last gasp of the warm air.
The final breath.
One last thing on the bigger picture seasonality. When should we expect the strongest cold fronts? Because I feel like I see them all year, but the really violent ones seem to be timed.
The transition season, so fall and spring.
Why then? Why not winter when it's the absolute coldest?
Because you need contrast. In the dead of winter, the land is cold, the air is cold. I mean, everything is pretty much cold. The difference between the air masses just isn't as extreme.
And in summer?
In summer, the jet stream retreats way up north. Everything is warm, the fronts are lazy, they stall out, they're not very impressive.
But in spring?
In spring, you still have bitterly cold air pooling in the Arctic, but the sun is waking up the tropics and the Gulf of Mexico. So you have hot, humid air clashing with freezing dry air. That contrast creates the sharpest gradients and therefore the most violent weather.
So the bigger the difference in temperature, the harder the atmosphere fights to fix it.
Exactly. The atmosphere is just trying to reach equilibrium. The further out of whack it is, the harder it snaps back into place.
Okay, let's wrap this up. We have covered a ton of ground here. We've gone from the heaviness of the warm sector to the frappa and all the way to the trawl.
We have indeed.
If you take one thing away from this deep dive, is that the blue line on the map isn't just a drawing. It is a dense, fast-moving wedge of air.
And remember the checklist. If you feel the pressure drop, that headache weather, and you look up and see the altocumulus fish scales in the sky.
And then the wind suddenly shifts from hitting your face to hitting the back of your head.
You have just experienced a frontal passage. You've just been run over by the atmospheric snowplow.
You aren't just getting cold. You are standing in a zone of atmospheric correction.
Exactly.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. We mentioned that a cold front is just nature trying to balance temperatures. But think about the scale of that.
Go on.
Think about the immense amount of energy that's required to drop the temperature of an entire state. Think of the volume of air over Texas or over France, millions of cubic miles of air to cool that entire mass down by 30 degrees Celsius in just a few hours.
The energy calculation is staggering. It's more energy than entire nuclear arsenals.
We treat it as just weather, maybe grab a sweater, but in reality, a cold front is a massive thermodynamic shock wave that is passing right through us. We are living inside the engine.
That really puts it in perspective. We are very small.
So next time the wind shifts, give a little nod to the physics. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe out there.
Welcome back to The Deep Dive. It is great to have you with us. Today, we are looking at a phenomenon in the fitness world that has just absolutely exploded. It calls itself the World Series of Fitness Racing.
Which is a pretty bold claim right out of the gate.
It is huge.
Yeah.
And it has a name that, honestly, it sounds like a sci-fi movie or maybe a synth pop band from the 80s. we are talking about Hyrox.
It does, doesn't it? It has that sort of futuristic, almost aggressive sound to it.
Yeah.
But when you actually start to peel it back, which is what we're going to do, the name is surprisingly, well, literal.
Exactly. So here's the mission for today. We've got a whole stack of material on this. Race reports, history, you name it. We want to figure out how a race that started with, 650 people in a German exhibition hall?
Yeah, in Hamburg.
How that turned into this global juggernaut with hundreds of thousands of competitors. We're going to break down the formula, that infamous 8x1. And we're going to look at the absolute machines who are crushing these world records and, I guess, ask if this is just a trend or if it's actually, the future of how we define fitness.
And I think that's the key thing to establish right away. Hyrox isn't just another Tough Mudder or a local gym challenge. It's trying to bridge a really specific gap in the industry.
What gap is that?
Well, you've got your marathon runners on one side,
Right.
pure endurance. Then on the other, you've got your powerlifters, your CrossFitters, people focused on strength and technical skill.
Two totally different worlds.
Totally. And Hyrox is betting everything on the idea that the modern athlete wants to be a hybrid.
And there it is. That's where the name comes from. I love a good origin story for a name. Hyrox, it's a portmanteau, a mashup of hybrid and rock star.
Which, that tells you everything you need to know about the ambition behind it.
It really does. Hybrid rock star. It sounds so intense, a little bit flashy maybe, like you're not just there to get sweaty, you're there to put on a show.
And that's a huge part of the appeal. Fitness for a long time was, for many people, a pretty solitary thing. You put your headphones in, you do your reps, you go home. The rock star part implies a spectacle.
Lights, music, a crowd.
Exactly. They wanted to make fitness feel like a concert.
But the origin story, despite that name, is actually pretty grounded. It starts in 2017, Hamburg, Germany. The founders are Christian Totzka and a guy named Moritz Fürste. And Fürst is not just some business guy.
No. And this is crucial for the credibility.
Mm-hmm.
He's an Olympic field hockey champion.
Right.
He knows what a league competition feels like from the inside.
Yeah.
They weren't just trying to create a new gym class. They saw this gap for millions of people. The source material calls them avid Strava users.
Just to quickly explain, Strava is that app where you track your runs and bike rides and get way too competitive with your friends about it.
Exactly. So you have all these people training really hard, they're lifting, they're running 5Ks, but they don't have a game day.
Yeah, the sources say they wanted to give people a goal beyond just losing weight or checking body fat, something to actually train for.
Precisely. If you play five-a-side football, you have a match on Saturday. If you're a runner, you have the half marathon. But if you just do functional fitness, what's your Super Bowl?
You just go to the gym again.
You just go to the gym again. They wanted to create that Super Bowl for everybody.
And I love this detail. The original brief they gave themselves was to create a 200,000 euro production that looked like a 2 million euro production.
Total fake it till you make it energy.
Right.
And it worked. They understood that if you walk into a venue and it feels professional, big screens, timing chips, loud music, you perform better. It makes your effort feel important.
And the growth is just insane. That first race in Hamburg, 650 people. Fast forward to 2023, and they've got 175,000 competitors around the world.
The scale is mind-bending. I was looking at the numbers for London in 2023, 24,000 people over 2 days. That's getting close to major city marathon numbers.
But inside a building.
Inside a convention center. The logistics are just...
Wow. So why? Why are thousands of people paying good money to go suffer in an exhibition hall? It all comes down to the format. We have to talk about the Hyrox standard.
This is the secret sauce. This is what makes it different from, say, CrossFit. The CrossFit Games, the workouts are a mystery every year. You might have to swim or climb a rope or, flip a giant tire.
It's chaos by design.
It's chaos. Hyrox went the complete opposite way. They chose rigid, absolute standardization.
8x1 concept.
That's it. It is always the same thing. 8 kilometers of running broken up by 8 functional workouts. You run a kilometer, you do a workout, run another K, do the next workout. 8 times.
And it doesn't matter if you're Miami or Manchester.
Identical. The weights are the same, the distances are the same, the movements are the same.
Which means you can have a real, legitimate global leaderboard.
And that is so key for that Strava-using, data-driven athlete we talked about. You can genuinely compare your time against anyone in the world. A 100-meter dash is 100 meters everywhere. Hyrox brought that same certainty to fitness racing.
Okay. Let's get into the weeds then. Let's walk through this gauntlet because 8x1 on paper, you think, okay, a 1K run, I can do that. But the cumulative effect is something else entirely.
It's designed to break you down slowly. It's all about what they call compromised running.
Define that for us. Compromised running.
Sure. So when you go for a normal run, you find a rhythm, right? Your heart rate stabilizes. Compromised running is what happens when you have to run right after your legs have turned to jelly from pushing a sled. Your form goes out the window, your heart rate is already through the roof. The race is basically a test of how well you can recover while you're still moving.
Okay, so let's paint the picture. The starting gunfires. You run your first 1K. You enter the rock zone, the transition area, and you hit station 1. 1,000 meters on the ski erg.
Right. And for anyone who hasn't seen one, it's like a rowing machine on its end. You're pulling down on handles, mimicking cross-country skiing. It's all upper body and core.
Why start with that?
It's a trap, a complete trap. You're full of adrenaline. The music is blasting. It's so easy to go out way too hard, redline your heart rate in the first 5 minutes. You burn out your shoulders and lats, and you pay for it an hour later.
Okay, so you survive the ski, you're breathing heavy, you go run your 2nd kilometer, come back in for station 2, 50 meters of sled push.
And this is where the hybrid part smacks you in the face. You've just been running light, fast. Now you have to grind to a halt and push this incredibly heavy sled. It's pure brute force leg power.
And it's heavy, right? We're not talking about a light sled here.
Oh, no. Depending on your division, it's well over 100 kilos. And the physiology is crazy. All the blood that was helping you run suddenly has to rush to your quads to push this thing. Then, boom, you have to run again. Your body is just confused.
Then another kilometer, and station 3 is 50 meters of sled pull.
Yep, so now you're hitting the other side of your body, the posterior chain, your hamstrings, glutes, your back. You're pulling the sled towards you with a big, thick rope.
I've seen people do this. They just yank with their arms, right?
The rookies do, and their biceps just explode. The pros, they lean way back, use their whole body weight. But even then, your grip is getting tired. Your lower back is starting to scream at you.
And we're only at station 3. Station 4 is the one that I think everyone dreads. 80 meters of burpee broad jumps.
This is the one. For a lot of people, this is the hardest station on the floor. It's the physical and psychological halfway point, and it is just relentless.
So it's not a normal burpee.
No. You do the burpee chest to the floor, but when you come up, instead of jumping straight up, you launch yourself forward as far as you can.
And you have to cover 80 meters like that.
80 meters. It's a cardio killer because it's explosive. Every single rep is a max effort jump. It spikes your heart rate like nothing else. If you blow up here, your race is pretty much over. You'll be walking the next run. This is where the dark thoughts start to creep in.
And you're only halfway done. You get through that, your mess, and you realize there's 4 more stations and 4 more kilometers to run.
Yep. So you run your next K, and you hit station 5. 1,000 meters of rowing.
Another full body grind?
It's a full body grind. You get to sit down for a second, which feels amazing, and then horrible because rowing uses everything. It's just you staring at that little screen, watching the meters tick down while your legs are on fire.
Okay, run again. Station 6. 200 meters kettlebell farmer carry.
This is just mean. It's a test of pure grip strength. You're holding a heavy kettlebell in each hand, and you just have to walk. Your forearms are burning, your shoulders are aching from the ski hours ago, or what feels like hours ago.
And if you drop them?
You can, but it costs time. And picking them back up when you're that tired is just awful. Your hands feel like claws afterwards.
Another run. Then station 7. 100 meters of sandbag walking lunges.
Ugh. The lunges. You have this heavy, awkward sandbag on your shoulders. Your legs are shaking. Your balance is gone. People are wobbling all over the place here. And the judges are watching. If your knee doesn't touch the ground, it's a no rep. You have to do it again.
That's just cruel. And then the final run into the final station. Station 8. 100 wall balls.
The grand finale. It's the ultimate metabolic burn. You're holding a medicine ball, doing a full squat, and then exploding up to throw it at a target on the wall.
100 times.
100 reps. Unbroken is the goal, but almost nobody can do that at the end of a race.
Yeah.
Your legs are gone from the lunges, your arms are gone from everything else, and if you miss the target,
don't tell me.
no rep. Doesn't count. Do it again.
That's just, I have no words. It sounds completely punishing. And yet, their slogan is a sport for everybody. How did those two things match up?
Well, the accessibility is actually one of their smartest moves. There's no qualifying time to enter a normal race. You just pay your money and you're in.
Yeah.
And they have different divisions.
Right, so you're not competing against the pros.
Exactly. There's men, women, pro divisions. The weights change. The pro men push a heavier sled than the open women, but the race itself, the movements, are identical. So you could have a grandmother and an Olympian doing the same course at the same time.
Doubles and relays are a huge part of that accessibility, I imagine.
Oh, massive. The doubles is brilliant. You and a partner run all 8K together, but you split the work at the stations any way you want.
So one person can do half the burpees.
Yep. Or you alternate reps on the wall balls. It makes it so much less intimidating. It turns it into a team sport. You're suffering, but you're suffering together.
And the relay is even more broken down.
Yeah, that's 4 people. Each person basically does a sprint, 2 1K runs, and 2 workout stations. It's great for gyms or corporate teams. It's a whole different kind of pain, more of a sprint than a slog.
So if I'm listening to this and thinking, okay, maybe how do you even train for this? It's not just running. It's not just lifting.
We have to train hybrid. The sources talk a lot about Hyrox-style workouts. A big concept is the buy-in.
A buy-in? What's that?
It's where you start a workout with a big chunk of cardio to pre-fatigue yourself. So you might do a 1,000-meter row as your buy-in, get your heart rate up, then you go straight into your rounds of kettlebell swings and sled pushes.
So you're training your body to work when it's already tired.
Precisely. You're simulating the back half of the race. You can't just do fresh sets with 3 minutes of rest. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Which is why you see all this equipment, the ski ergs, the sleds, popping up in more and more gyms.
Absolutely. Hyrox has basically created the shopping list for the modern functional gym. And that's a huge part of their business model, which is another story entirely.
Okay, let's go there. Let's talk about the other side of this, the elites, the Elite 15. This is where it gets serious.
Yeah, this is where it's a professional sport. To get to the World Championships as an elite, you have to qualify. You either place top 3 at a major championship like the North American champs, or you post one of the fastest times in the world that season.
And there are some big names. On the men's side, you can't talk about Hyrox without talking about Hunter McIntyre.
He is the definition of hybrid rock star.
Yeah.
He's a 3-time world champion. Held the world record for, 666 days?
He's character, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's loud, he's brash, he's incredibly dominant. He really was the face of the sport during its massive growth spurt. He was the perfect athlete for them to build the brand around.
But the sport's evolving. He's not the only name now. The sources mention Alexander Ronchevich, who holds the current world record at 53 minutes and 15 seconds.
And we have to stop and appreciate how insane that time is. 53 minutes. The sources say the average pro men's finish time is about 1 hour and 22 minutes.
Wait a minute. He's finishing almost half an hour faster than an average pro?
Yes. That's the gap. It's monumental. It's not like a marathon where the best in the world is maybe 10% faster than a really good club runner. This is a different stratosphere. It shows you how specialized this sport is becoming at the top end.
And what about on the women's side?
Lauren Weeks has been the dominant force, a 3-time champion, just like Hunter. Her world record is around 56 minutes, which is it's breathtakingly fast. She's not far off the top men at all.
And it's getting competitive there too, right?
Incredibly. You have athletes like Megan Jacoby and Linda Meyer just trading records back and forth. The depth in the women's field is growing so fast as more athletes from running and CrossFit backgrounds are crossing over.
Now, speaking of records, there was this weird period in the 2022-23 season where apparently a ton of records were broken because they changed something with the sleds. What was that all about?
Yeah, that's a classic growing pains of a new sports story.
Yeah.
It comes back to that idea of standardization.
Okay.
Before that season, the rule was put X amount of weight on the sled. But the sled itself has weight, and different sleds from different brands weigh different amounts. And the carpet they slide on has different levels of friction.
So a race in London might have been slightly harder than one in Miami.
Potentially, yeah. So to make it truly standard, they changed the rule. The new rule was about the total weight, the sled, plus the plates.
So they effectively reduced the amount of weight people were adding to the sled?
By about 10 or 15 kilos, yeah. It meant the total weight being pushed was a little bit lighter than in previous seasons.
And suddenly, boom, everyone's a record breaker.
Exactly. You have to kind of put an asterisk next to times before that season. But it was a necessary step to make the global leaderboard truly legitimate.
Which brings us neatly to the business of it all. This isn't just a race, it's an entire ecosystem, isn't it?
It's incredibly smart. They saw the CrossFit affiliate model and ran with it. They have something like 5,000 gyms around the world paying fees to be official Hyrox performance centers.
So they're not just selling tickets to the race, they're monetizing the training for the race.
It's a perfect feedback loop. The gym gets a program that keeps its members engaged and paying fees. Hyrox gets a global network of recruiters. It's brilliant.
And then you have the big name sponsors, Red Bull, Puma, Center, which is Chris Hemsworth's fitness company.
Yeah, Center's the official equipment partner, so all the gear looks sleek and uniform. It's not just random stuff from a warehouse. It looks good on the broadcast, which attracts more sponsors.
What about the athletes, though? Can you make a living doing this?
We're getting there. The prize purse for the World Championships was about $150,000 recently. The winner took home $25,000.
Which is not bad, but not life-changing money.
Not yet. It's not tennis or golf money. You can't retire on one win. But for these athletes, the real value is in the exposure. They can build their own brands, coaching, social media, sponsorships on the back of the Rockstar platform that Hyrox gives them.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. We've got this accessible but brutal race. It's standardized. It's growing like a weed. What does it all mean? Is this replacing the marathon? Is it replacing CrossFit?
I think it's trying to become the new benchmark. For decades, running a marathon was the ultimate badge of fitness honor for an everyday person.
But it only tests one thing, really. Can you jog for a very long time?
Right. Then CrossFit came and said fitness is about being good at everything, but the skills are so high, you need to be a part-time gymnast and a part-time Olympic lifter.
I can't just go do a muscle-up tomorrow.
Exactly. Hyrox found the sweet spot. The movements are simple. Pushing, pulling, lunging, running. Anyone can do them. But doing them fast, all together, is what separates people. It's a test of pure work capacity. It rewards grunt work over complex skill.
It's democratizing that I'm an athlete feeling.
That's a great way to put it. It feels primal. It feels like real hard work.
I have to wonder, though, with the DJs, the lights, the Red Bull cans everywhere, does the Rockstar eventually eat the hybrid? Does the show become more important than the sport?
That's the tightrope they have to walk. They got the €2 million look they wanted. Now they have to maintain the integrity of the competition. The judging has to be strict. The standards have to be high. If it just becomes a big party where the rules are loose, the hardcore athletes will lose interest.
A delicate balance.
It is. But so far, they've nailed it. They've tapped into this desire people have to push their limits, but also to be part of a community, part of an event. They want the pain and they want the party.
It really does feel like we're watching a major new sport find its footing in real time, which is pretty rare.
I agree. And for anyone listening who's maybe a bit bored of their routine, this is, well, it's definitely an option.
Just maybe practice a few burpee broad jumps in your living room first. Don't go in cold on those.
Oh, definitely practice the burpees. Your body will thank you for it later. Or, well, it will hate you slightly less.
That's all for this deep dive into the world of Hyrox. Whether you're a hybrid rock star in the making or just trying to understand your friend's new obsession with sleds, we hope this cleared things up a bit. We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious and maybe stay hybrid. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening up a file that is, quite frankly, heavy. And I don't just mean the stack of research papers and biographies we've got here. I mean the sheer weight of the mythology around the man we're discussing.
It is a heavy file. And it's a dusty one. It smells like, gunpowder, horse sweat, and old celluloid film.
That is a very specific mix, but it fits. We are talking about Francisco Pancho Villa. Now, before everyone rolls their eyes and pictures like a cartoon character in a sombrero, I want to set the stage. Because the sources we've pulled for this paint a picture that is so radically different.
That caricature is actually a fascinating part of the story in its own right, but it does a real disservice to the man himself. I mean, if you strip away the Hollywood image, what you're left with is a figure who is much more terrifying and honestly much more impressive. You're looking at a logistical genius. A man who essentially invented mobile hospital units in warfare, a governor who ran a sort of socialist state in the middle of a civil war, and technically the only foreign commander to successfully invade the continental U.S. since the War of 1812.
That last point just always blows my mind. He invaded the U.S. and then spent months playing hide and seek with the entire U.S. Army. And got away with it.
Got away with it.
But we'll get there. Our mission today is to figure out how a sharecropper, a kid with zero formal education, built the most professional army in Latin American history. I want to understand the mechanics of it. How do you feed that many men? How do you pay them? How do you govern a state when you're illiterate?
Those are exactly the right questions, because Vela wasn't just a bandit chief. He was a CEO of chaos. But to understand the CEO, we have to understand the intern phase. Or maybe the sharecropper phase. We have to go back to Durango in 1878.
So let's set the board here, because context is everything. Villa, who was born Keo Orango Orambila, was born into a system that I think is hard for us to really wrap our heads around today. We hear sharecropper, but the Mexican hacienda system was something else entirely, wasn't it?
It was feudalism. That is really the only way to describe it accurately. Imagine a company town, but the company literally owns you, your parents, and your children. The haciendas were these massive estates, some the size of small European countries, owned by one family.
Wow.
And the workers, the peones, they were tied to the land through debt. You bought your food at the company store, the tienda de raya, at inflated prices, on credit, and you could never, ever pay it off. And that debt was hereditary.
Wait, so if your dad died owing the landlord money, you inherited the debt?
Exactly. You're born in the red. And legal recourse, it was non-existent. The hacienda owner was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. He had the right of pernada, which was basically the right to abuse the women on his estate. It was a system of absolute control.
So this is the world Doroteo Arango grows up in. He's just working dawn to dusk, seeing his family ground down by this machine.
Right. And this leads us to what feels like the inciting incident. It's almost cinematic, like a Western movie trope. But the sources all seem to agree on the core details. Villa, or Doroteo at this point, is 16 years old.
Okay, so it's 1894.
It is. He comes home from working in the fields, and he finds the hacienda owner, a guy named Agustin Lopez Negrete, inside his house. The accounts vary a little bit, but the core fact is that Negrete was harassing Doroteo's sister, Martina. The implication is pretty clear. It's imminent sexual assault.
And a 16-year-old peon is just supposed to, look at the floor and let it happen. That's the social contract of the hacienda.
That's the deal. Defying the patron is suicide. But Doroteo, he grabs a pistol, some sources say it was his cousin's, and he shoots Negrete. He doesn't kill him, he just hits him in the foot. But the bullet doesn't matter. The act is what matters. He broke the ultimate taboo. He raised a hand against the master.
So he has to run. This is the moment Jose Doroteo Arambila dies, effectively, and the outlaw is born. He heads for the hills.
Specifically, the Sierra Madre Occidental.
Oh.
And I want to pause on the geography here because it explains so much about his future military success. These mountains are just unforgiving. We're talking about canyons that rival the Grand Canyon, scorching heat, freezing nights, and these labyrinthine trails.
Right.
To survive there, you have to become part of the landscape.
So this is his university. He's not at West Point. He's just trying not to starve or get eaten by a puma in the Sierra Madre.
Precisely. For roughly the next 16 years, he lives as a bandit. He joins gangs. He learns to shoot from a moving horse. He learns how to find water where there is none. He becomes a master of the terrain. And somewhere in this period, he changes his name to Francisco Villa.
Why that name? Is it just an alias to protect his family back home?
That's part of it. There's a theory he took the name of a legendary bandit grandfather, Jesus Villa. Another says he took it from a bandit leader in Coahuila who died, and he just kind of assumed the mantle. But Pancho is just a common nickname for Francisco. It's a regular guy's name. It's accessible.
But up until 1910, he's just a criminal, right? A cattle rustler. He worked as a butcher, which I guess gives him some knowledge of anatomy that might come in handy later on. But he's not a revolutionary. He's not thinking about political reform.
Not at all. Not yet. He's a social bandit, as the historian Hobsbawm would say. He steals from the rich because everyone he hates is rich, but he's not trying to overthrow the government. He's just trying to survive. But then he meets the mentor figure, Abraham Gonzalez.
This relationship fascinates me. Gonzalez is an intellectual, upper middle class. He's a representative for Francisco Madero, who's running for president against the dictator Porfirio Diaz. So why does a guy like Gonzalez even bother talking to a dirty, wanted fugitive like Villa?
Because Gonzalez understands something fundamental about revolutions. Intellectuals start them, but rough men finish them. He looks at Villa, and he doesn't see a thug. He sees a natural leader who hates all the same people Madero hates. He sees a weapon.
So he pitches him on the revolution.
He sits him down, and he basically explains why Villa's life has been so hard. He gives him the political vocabulary for his own suffering. He says, you're not hungry because you're lazy. You're hungry because the system is rigged. And if you fight for Madero, we can unrig it.
That's the Robin Hood pitch. It validates everything Villa has done. It tells him your violence can be virtuous.
And it works. Villa recruits his bandit friends, and suddenly the revolution has a cavalry. When the fighting starts in 1910, Villa isn't just good at it. He is a savant. He captures haciendas, he takes towns. Madero, this little intellectual with a high-pitched voice, eventually promotes this ex-cattle rustler to colonel.
Okay, so Madero wins. The dictator Diaz flees to Paris. Madero becomes president. It seems like the movie should end there. Villa retires, right?
He tries. He actually does try to settle down. But the Mexican Revolution is just messy.
Yeah.
In 1913, there's a coup. General Victoriano Huerta, a brutal, alcoholic, old-school general, murders Madero. It's known as the 10 Tragic Days.
And this is the catalyst. This is what creates the Pancho Villa we all know today. Madero was his idol. Madero was the guy who gave him legitimacy. And now Madero is dead.
Villa is devastated,
Yeah.
and he is enraged. He crosses the border from the U.S. back into Mexico with, and I want you to picture this, 8 men, 2 pounds of coffee, and 500 rounds of ammunition.
8 men.
8 men. And from that tiny seed, within months, he builds the División del Norte, the Division of the North. And this is where we have to stop looking at him as a bandit and start looking at him as a general. Because what he builds is not a guerrilla band. It is a modern, industrialized army.
Let's dig into the how here. Because you mentioned earlier he used railroads. In the movies, we always see the guys on horses. But you're saying his army was rail-based.
The horse was for the battle. The train was for the war. Villa understood logistics better than the West Point trained generals he was fighting. He controlled the rail lines from the U.S. border all the way down into central Mexico.
Wow.
This let him move heavy artillery, ammo, food, and thousands of men at speeds the Federal Army just couldn't match. But he didn't just use the trains, he managed them. He hired American railway foremen. He had repair crews that could fix a blown track in hours.
Feels like a moving city.
It was a moving city, and
Right.
this city had services. The most revolutionary thing he did, pun intended, was the medical corps. Before Villa, if you got shot in a Mexican Civil War battle, you were left to rot. Or maybe, if you were lucky, someone poured tequila on the wound. Villa created dedicated hospital trains.
Like mobile ERs.
Yes, white cars with red crosses painted on the side. He hired the best surgeons he could find. Mexicans, Americans, French. They had operating tables, sterilization equipment, triage protocols. They could perform amputations and bullet extractions while the train was moving away from the front line.
That is incredible. And from a morale standpoint, that has to be huge. Knowing that if you take a bullet, there's a doctor waiting for you, not just a vulture.
It was a massive recruiter. And the other thing that recruited well, he paid in cash.
Real money, not IOUs.
Silver and gold, or currency that was backed by it. He paid his soldiers 1 peso a day. That sounds like nothing now, but for a peon who maybe earned a few centavos a day on the hacienda, this was a fortune. It meant you could send money home and professionalize the army. You didn't need to loot a village to eat. Villa fed you and paid you.
But where did he get the money? I mean, 8 men and some coffee doesn't just turn into a payroll for 50,000 soldiers?
Well, he had a few revenue streams. One, he confiscated the assets of all those hacienda owners he hated. He sold their cattle to the U.S. We're talking millions of dollars worth of beef. But he also understood the power of the media. And this is my favorite Villa detail. The Hollywood deal.
Okay, talk to me about this, because it sounds completely fake. He signed a contract with a movie studio.
In January 1914, he signs a contract with the Mutual Film Corporation. They pay him $25,000 in gold, a huge sum then, plus a percentage of the profits. In exchange, they get exclusive rights to film his battles.
Wait, actual battles with people really dying?
Yes, and the contract had stipulations. Villa allegedly agreed to fight during daylight hours whenever possible because, the cameras need a good light. There are stories, though some historians debate this, that he delayed an attack on the town of Ojinaga because the film crew wasn't ready yet.
That is dystopian. It's like reality TV, but with actual casualties.
It is surreal. But for Villa, it was totally pragmatic.
Yeah.
He needed the money for ammo, and he needed the American public to see him as a hero, not a bandit. He even got a custom-made uniform for the cameras because his old one looked too dirty. He was shaping his own legend in real time.
So he's a media mogul, a logistics expert, and a general. But let's shift to the other role he took on, which I think is the most surprising, the administrator. In 1913, for about a month, he serves as the provisional governor of Chihuahua.
And everyone expected a total disaster. They thought, the bandit is in the governor's palace, hide this silverware. But instead, he engaged in this frenzy of administrative activity. He worked 18-hour days. He dictated letters to secretaries because he couldn't write well enough himself.
What was his policy agenda?
It was populist and, honestly, surprisingly sophisticated. First thing, he slashed the price of meat. He ordered that meat be sold at a fraction of the market rate so the poor could finally afford it. He threatened butchers with execution if they price gouged.
The butcher becomes the regulator.
Exactly. But his biggest move was education. Villa had this reverence for education, probably because he lacked it himself. He famously said, "I love nothing on earth so much as a school teacher." In that 1 month, he ordered the construction of 50 schools.
50.
50. He was obsessed with the idea that the only way to break the cycle of the hacienda was through literacy.
But let's go back to the economics. You can't just slash prices and build schools without crashing the economy. So how did he handle the banks?
With a crowbar, essentially. He printed his own currency, the famous Villa bills. And obviously the banks and the wealthy merchants, they didn't want to accept this paper money. They wanted gold. So Villa just issued a decree. Anyone refusing his currency would be jailed or shot. He forced the currency to trade at par with the gold peso.
That's fiat currency taken to the literal extreme. Just let it be done.
It worked, temporarily, because he had the gun to back it up. He also engaged in what might be the greatest legal bank heist in history. He went after the Terrazas family, the biggest landowners in Chihuahua. Luis Terrazas had fled, but his son was still there. So Villa took the son hostage.
This is the Terrazas gold story.
Yes. Villa knew the family had millions in gold reserves hidden somewhere. He interrogates the son. The son won't talk. So Villa puts him through a mock execution. Finally, the son breaks and reveals the location. A column inside the Bank of Chihuahua. They tear open the pillar, and gold coins just pour out.
It's like Ocean's 11, but he's the governor.
And he uses that gold to fund the army and the schools. It's wealth redistribution at the barrel of a gun. The historian Friedrich Katz calls this the first welfare state in Mexico. It was crude, it was violent, but for the poor in Chihuahua, Villa was delivering what the government never had: food, education, and dignity.
So he's at the absolute peak of his power. He has the division of the North, he has the money, he has the fame, but there's a storm coming. And that storm is his own boss, Venustiano Carranza.
Carranza is the first chief of the Constitutionalist Army. Ideologically, he and Villa are on the same side. They're both against the dictator Huerta. But personally, they are oil and water. Carranza is this tall, bearded aristocrat. He wears color spectacles, he sees himself as the future president, and he sees Villa as a useful barbarian, a tool to be used and then discarded.
And Villa can sense this condescension, I'm sure.
Oh, he hates it. Villa calls Carranza the old man. He thinks Carranza is soft. The tension just explodes in 1914 over the Battle of Zacatecas.
Let's dive into Zacatecas, because the sources describe this as the single bloodiest battle of the entire revolution. What were the stakes?
Zacatecas was the gateway to Mexico City. Whoever took Zacatecas would effectively win the war against Huerta. Carranza, terrified that Villa would win all the glory and march into the capital first, orders Villa not to attack. He orders him to go to a different city, Saltillo. It's a completely nonsensical order, purely political.
So he's actively sabotaging his own best general just to keep him from getting too popular?
Exactly. Villa is furious. He offers his resignation. Carranza accepts it. But then Villa's generals, his loyal officers, they refuse to accept a new commander. They basically tell Carranza, we ride with Villa or we don't ride at all.
Wow.
So Carranza's hand is forced. Villa ignores the orders and attacks Zacatecas anyway.
Describe the battle, because Zacatecas isn't an open field, right? It's a city surrounded by mountains.
It's a natural fortress. The Federal Army is dug in on two massive peaks, La Bufa and El Grillo. They have heavy artillery pointing down on all the approaches. To take the city, Villa's troops have to charge uphill directly into machine gun fire.
This sounds like a suicide mission.
It should have been, but Villa coordinates this brilliant pincer movement. He uses his artillery, which is commanded by a former federal officer, Felipe Angeles, who's a genius in his own right, to suppress the enemy guns. Then the infantry and the cavalry just swarm up the slopes. It is brutal, hand-to-hand combat.
The death toll is staggering.
Depending on the source, somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 federal soldiers are killed. Many try to flee, but Villa's troops have cut off the retreat. They literally hunt down and execute the federal officers. It's a massacre.
Yeah.
But it breaks the Huerta regime. Huerta flees the country. The revolution is won.
Because Villa defied orders to win it, the victory is actually the beginning of the end for him.
Right. Carranza never forgives him. The victors split. And now it's a new civil war, the Conventionists, which is Villa and his southern ally Zapata, versus the Constitutionalists, which is Carranza and his genius general Álvaro Obregón.
And this leads us to the downfall. The Battle of Celaya in 1915. We have to talk about Álvaro Obregón. We haven't mentioned him much, but he really seems to be the anti-Villa.
He is. Obregón is a pragmatist. He's not charismatic like Villa, but he is studious. And he has been reading reports from a war happening across the ocean, World War I. He sees that the era of the glorious cavalry charge is over. The The era of the machine gun and barbed wire has arrived.
So Villa is still fighting a 19th century war, and Obregon is fighting a 20th century war.
Precisely. At Celaya, Obregon finds this flat plain. He digs trenches. He lays out miles of barbed wire. He positions his machine gun nests with overlapping fields of fire. He creates these kill zones.
Then
Villa does what has always worked for him. He relies on elan, on spirit, on the terrifying momentum of a mass cavalry charge. He throws his Dorados, his elite golden ones, at the constitutionalist lines.
It must have been just horrific. Horses against machine guns.
It was a slaughter. The horses get tangled in the wire. The machine guns just mow them down. Villa attacks not once, but dozens of times over several days. He refuses to adapt his tactics. He just keeps feeding men into the grinder.
There's a detail in the notes about searchlights.
Yes. Villa tries these desperate night attacks, thinking he can use the cover of darkness. But Obregon has these powerful electric searchlights powered by generators, possibly using U.S. equipment. He just flicks the switch, illuminates the entire field, and his gunners open fire on the targets. It's technology beating bravery.
So Villa loses. And he doesn't just lose. The Division of the North is shattered.
It ceases to exist as a major fighting force. Villa retreats north. He's no longer a general commanding 50,000 men. He's back to being a guerrilla leader with a few hundred loyalists. He's back in the mountains where he started.
And he's bitter. He blames Obregon, sure. But he also starts to really blame the United States. Why? I mean, he was the darling of the U.S. media. He was the guy with the Hollywood contract. What changed?
Realpolitik. President Woodrow Wilson decides that Carranza is the best bet for stability in Mexico. So the U.S. officially recognizes the Carranza government. They even allow Carranza to move troops on U.S. railroads to outflank Villa. And worse, they place an arms embargo on Villa.
So he's cut off. He can't buy bullets. And the Americans are actively helping his enemy.
And there's this one story, well, it's hard to verify, but Villa absolutely believed it, that he paid for a huge shipment of ammunition from an American dealer, and when he opened the crates, the cartridges were defective, just wood bullets or empty casings. He felt totally swindled and betrayed.
That betrayal is the fuel for what happens next. The raid on Columbus, New Mexico, March 9th, 1916. This is the moment Villa goes from Mexican general to enemy of the state in American eyes.
It's 4 a.m, pitch black. Villa has about 485 men. They cross the border and creep into this sleepy little town, Columbus. There's a U.S. Army garrison there, Camp Furlong.
What was the plan? Was it just kill Americans? Or was there a strategy?
It was messy. On one level, they wanted to loot supplies. Guns, horses, mules. They wanted to burn the town. But strategically, Villa wanted to provoke an intervention. He knew if he attacked the U.S., Wilson would have to invade Mexico. And if the U.S. invaded, Carranza would look weak if he didn't fight back. Villa was trying to cause a war that would destabilize his enemies.
So the shooting starts.
It's total chaos. Villistas are setting fire to hotels and stores. Civilians are running into the streets. The U.S. soldiers at the camp wake up to the sound of gunfire. There's this frantic defense. The Americans set up machine guns, but they keep jamming in the dark.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare.
The town is burning. The light from the fires actually helps the U.S. soldiers see their targets. After a few hours, Villa retreats. The toll is roughly 18 Americans dead, civilians and soldiers, and about 80 of Villa's men.
Militarily, it's a skirmish, but politically, it's Pearl Harbor. You cannot burn an American town and get away with it.
The American public goes ballistic. Catch Villa. Kill Villa. President Wilson has no choice. He orders General John J. Pershing, Blackjack, to take a massive force and go into Mexico to get Villa dead or alive.
This is the punitive expedition, and the scale of this is massive.
It's huge, 10,000 troops eventually. And this is the modern U.S. Army's debut. They bring the first convoys of motorized trucks, Dodge and White trucks. They bring the first Aero Squadron with their Jenny biplanes. They are bringing the 20th century to hunt a guy in the mountains.
And it fails spectacularly.
It's a comedy of errors. The trucks, they get stuck in the Mexican mud and break their axles on the rough trails. The airplanes, the altitude in the Sierra Madre is too high. They can't get enough lift. They keep crashing. They can't find Villa anywhere.
He's just ghosting them.
He's wounded, actually. He took a bullet in the leg in a separate skirmish. He's literally hiding in a cave, recovering, while Pershing is marching around Chihuahua chasing rumors.
Yeah.
And the local population, they hate the Americans. They mislead the troops, send them in the wrong direction. Villa becomes a national hero again because he's making the gringos look like fools.
For 11 months, the U.S. Army just wanders around Mexico. They kill some of Villa's lieutenants, they fight a few battles, but they never, ever catch him.
Eventually, with World War I looming in Europe, Wilson pulls the plug. Pershing goes home empty-handed. It's pretty much the only time the U.S. Army has really failed a mission like that right on its own border.
So Villa survives. He outlasts the expedition. He outlasts the revolution, really.
Yeah.
By 1920, Carranza is assassinated. The new guys in charge, Adolfo de la Huerta, Obregón, Calles, they just want peace. They want the country to stop bleeding.
So they offer Villa a buyout, a retirement package.
Please stop fighting, and we will give you a hacienda.
Basically. They give him the Hacienda Canutillo, 25,000 acres, and they let him keep a personal bodyguard of 50 of his former fighters. And the government pays for it all.
So he sets up his own little utopia.
He does. He basically rebuilds his vision of society on a small scale. He builds a school. He buys modern farm equipment. He's living the life of a country squire. He tells journalists, "I am done with politics. I just want to farm."
Do we believe him?
The government certainly didn't. It's 1923. Elections are coming up. Álvaro Obregón is president, and he wants to handpick his successor, Plutarco Elias Calles. They know Villa hates Calles, and they are terrified that Villa will ride out of Canutillo with his 50 men, recruit 50,000 more, and start the war all over again.
So it's a preemptive strike. They decide they have to kill him.
It's a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of government. A local congressman, Jesus Salas Barraza, organizes the hit squad in the town of Peril, where Villa liked to visit.
Let's walk through the assassination. It's July 20, 1923.
Villas is in Corral. He's visiting one of his wives. He had many. He's driving his 1919 Dodge touring car. He's driving it himself, which is rare for him. He's got his secretary next to him and a few bodyguards in the back. But he's relaxed. He's laughing.
He drives past the street corner.
On the corner, there's a pumpkin seed vendor. He's the lookout. As Villa's car approaches, the vendor shouts, "Viva Villa!"
A salute?
A signal. He shouts it once to say, "He's coming." Then he shouts it again to signify he's the one driving.
That is dark. Using the man's own rallying cry to signal his executioners.
As the car turns the corner, 7 riflemen pop out of a building. They're holding semi-automatic rifles. They unleash a fusillade. Over 40 shots hit the car.
And the details here are just gruesome.
They use expanding bullets, dum-dum bullets, used for big game hunting. They tear massive holes. Villas is hit in the head and the chest. He dies instantly. His hand was found reaching for his pistol, but he never even got it out. The car swerves and hits a tree.
There's that legend that he said, "Don't let it end like this. Tell him I said something."
Laughs softly.
Ah.
Yeah, that's the myth. But the autopsy and the witnesses make it clear. His brain was destroyed instantly. He didn't say a word. He just died.
So the center of the North is dead. The government breathes a sigh of relief. But the story has this one last weird epilogue. 3 years later, 1926.
It's the final twist. Villa is buried in the cemetery in Perel. One night, grave robbers dig up the coffin, they pry it open, and they cut off his head.
Just the head.
Just the head. They leave the body and take the head.
Why? I mean, who takes a head?
That is the great mystery. There are 3 main theories. Theory 1, a local rival did it as a trophy. Theory 2, an American treasure hunter named Emil Holmdahl stole it to sell to an eccentric millionaire who collected skulls.
And theory 3.
Skull and Bones. The secret society at Yale University. The rumor, which has persisted for a century now, is that Prescott Bush, George H.W. Bush's father, bought the skull for the society's tomb.
Is there any actual evidence for that?
None that holds up. Skull and Bones, of course, denies it, but the head has never been found. It's probably sitting in a box in someone's attic or buried somewhere in the desert.
It's fitting, in a way. The man was a myth in life, so he has to be a mystery in death.
It cements the legend, doesn't it? You can kill the body, you can display the corpse, but you can't quite capture the head of the movement.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, how do we assess Pancho Villa? We've seen the bandit, the general, the governor, the killer.
I think the best artifact to summarize him is that currency we talked about, the 2 faces bill.
The one he printed in Chihuahua.
Yes. On one side, it had the face of Madero, the idealist, the martyr. On the other side, it had the face of Abraham Gonzalez, the intellectual mentor. It shows his loyalty. But the name 2 Faces is just perfect for Villa himself. He is the 2 faces of the Mexican Revolution.
The liberator and the warlord.
Exactly. He is the man who built schools and fed the poor. He's also the man who massacred prisoners and burned a town. He represents the raw, volcanic energy of a people who had been oppressed for centuries. And when that energy finally explodes, it creates. But it also destroys.
And that energy shaped modern Mexico, for better or for worse.
It did. He forced the country to reckon with its poor. He proved that a peon could lead an army. He's a reminder that if you push people hard enough for long enough, eventually they push back. And sometimes they push back with trains and artillery.
That is a powerful place to leave it. A complex man for a complex time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. If you want to see photos of that Two Faces currency or the hospital trains, check the show notes. We'll see you next time.